Hey, well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Dream Labs, Dr. Contrast Live. I hope everybody's doing well. And we just thought I'd take a moment today and kind of give you a little bit of a brief overview of what we're going to try and attempt to do today in sketch rendering form. And I think it's going to be an interesting setup to work with here, because very often I'm guilty of this, and I'll be the first one to confess. Sometimes you get into vehicle sketches or transportation design sketches, we're pretty cosmetic with it and make sure everything's kind of falling into place and not too many mistakes being made, and on and on the story goes. But I think we really lose an awful lot, and I think I want to spend some time today going into what I refer to as like these animated gesture sketches, where you just kind of explore certain things and begin to look at possibilities, a lot of wiggling going through it, a lot of scratchiness going on, and just exploring for shape and format and theme. So I think this two-place coupe, or maybe a spider variation, which is another word for a convertible, two-place coupe is interesting. And just let's start with, I'm going to start with some ballpoint pen sketches, but keep in mind the whole method here today to work with is getting into the habit of just exploring or being very lucid with sketches as opposed to being so cosmetically pure. That'll come later. I think once you refine the thing, I think the most important part of the whole process to get the theme down, get a spirit down on paper, and then begin to magnify that into sketch rendering form. So let's kind of go through some just basic themes here. Let's get a ground line down and just work with a ballpoint pen and fly through a bit of a line study here. And just lay in just to get the wheelbase set. Let's come back in with one. Notice really scratchy, and I come back to the wheel count, 2, 3. Let's go back to about maybe right 4.5 or so, right? Call that a game plan. Let's drive a line off of that. Let's kind of then break it just a bit. Let's kind of do another gesture here. Let's kind of take this downhill. Let's bring this over the top again. Just exploring, again, real lucid stuff. No, nothing really scratchy. I just want to really kind of put a theme together. So that's that. Let's come back into it. Just really accentuate this thing off. Let's get that down. Let's bring this off the rear quarter area here. Let's bring that around. Neat stuff. Bring it back to ground. That thing, just tail it right back in. Let's put that really, really slim-looking coupe upper on this thing. Just really, really dramatic-looking drive line through there. Let's kind of bring this back just a bit. Kind of guttery. Just kind of go back and just get this thing there. Just kind of poke right through here. You're going to notice real lucid. I mean, I'm going to come back and just kind of wiggle through some horizon line stuff. A little bit of scratchiness on top of the upper where the canopy might sit. Just enough to give a little bit of drama to it. Up. Let's put a little bit of a change of pace in it. Let's do this. Put that into place as well. Maybe this whole rear quarter area. Let's kind of slide that back just a bit and do this. Maybe this whole rear quarter area comes. Let's do a little bit of this too. A little bit of tone work. Let's come back into this. Comes into this. Just change the graphics just a bit. Let's get a little more line weight in through here. Now that's all. I'm going to expose that second one. Let's kind of scratch that back in through here. Let's get this all put back into place. A little bit of secondary wheel in place here. Real quick theme. Let's find where our center is. Drive off of that. Pardon me as I kind of reconnect these guys. Sorry about that. There we are. Let's come back in here and get that done. Just a little bit of tone through here, just to kind of soften off a bit. Take that on through. Bring that on up. There we are. Hey, how you doing there? Northern Lights, how are you? Good to have you on board. Hi, Justin, how are you? Thanks for joining forces here today, guys. I'm just going to give you a quick overview here. Went back in and looked at some of the things we're doing over recently here, and I just want to really stress again, Ben Northern Lights and also Justin, getting back into more animated, for lack of a better term, really lucid, generating sketches and exploring for shape and theme. So that's what we're going to try and work on here today. And thank you so much for joining me. Hope all is well, guys. Let's break that up, bring that up. Let's bring that into play here. A little bit of a texture change in this guy. Let's bring that on through. Not a problem. Let's get this guy in here. Let's get that ground line down. Ballpoint pen start. Let's get this in place. And that center line is. A little more drama in through this. More in there. Just a little more tone work into this guy. A little bit of tone behind it, and just kind of walk out of it. Just a nice simple little form study here. There it is. Back in again. Same thing back here. Let's get that guy in place. Notice really lucid stuff. I'm not really going to be concerned here too much about what in the world we're dealing with. Just put a little bit of a trailer back there, a little bit of, there we are. Just a nice little thumbnail sketch there on how things are moving along here. That's there's phase one. I'm basically going to work today with a ballpoint pen and some Prismacolor pencil to work with here. Let's go back in and just get a little more animated with some of these shapes that we're dealing with here. I'm back in and just kind of walk through this guy a little bit more. Just kind of beef up some of the line weights. Get that character down. Bring that on through. That's all part of the process too. That's going to reinforce it. That wheel is actually exposed, so it's back there like so. A more tone to it. Just going to put that into place. Same thing up front. That into place. Ground line down, base line. And then a little bit of that graphic insert piece over the top of the wheel flare. And take it right back into that wheel opening. Kind of a neat little deal here. But again, really lucid. Let that stuff fly off the page. Really captive, a little bit of that, and a little bit of rearview mirror. And there we are. Just there's a first little thumbnail study there, black and white, of what we're looking at here. How you doing there, guys? Is this making sense for you so far? Just want to make sure we go through some really rapid, what I refer to as exploratory stuff. Let's kind of take that same theme down now. Let's move it over just a bit. Same process. Let's get this in place. Let's move around here. Hey, let's get these by. Let's get that wheel count in place. Really lucid. Let's open this up. Let's drive this line uphill. Still like that gesture. Let's bring this over the top. Not bad at all. It's going to bring this right up that upper now. Let's break this in on through. Let's just take that right into a real strong. Let's shorten that up a bit. Let's take that into place. Got the canopy back a little bit. Let's walk that thing right off of there. Get that splitter to work. Let's widen that out just a bit here. Let's take that into that form right there and just cut a little bit of that back. I'm really lucid. I'm going through these guys. I'm just, again, looking for new ways of graphically breaking up the form. Just breaking it all down. Hey, Shadow Man, how are you? R8. Yeah, maybe it's an R8. Yeah, that's not bad. We could go R8 on that one. I'll buy that. But again, a little Coupe study here. Let's put a little bit of that. Let's, first of all, let's just kind of get really scribbly with this guy. Let's get this thing in place. That little bit of a break there. That's the difference. That comes in. A little bit of tail section in this thing. That ground line down. That piece to work just a bit. Really lucid here. It's gonna kind of scribble through some of this thing and just really get a theme down here, guys. Let's really abbreviate that canopy. Look at that, man. That's really pulling the whole cap pull forward. A little bit less predictable, maybe in that sense. Let's go back in through here. Let's reverse this down just a bit now. It's gonna get a little bit of tone in this thing. Hey, what are we doing there? Bottom line, baseline. A little bit of a surprise here. Just a little bit of a paint text in this thing. Let's just gotta get in there. Just a little bit of graphic change here. Maybe it's more of that. Again, really concentrating on getting a lot of really quick, lucid themes here. Not really concerned about being perfect or just kind of scribbling in some really interesting shapes here. So we can come up with here as we go. There we are. Let's get this back in place here. It's going to get that center line where that's going to go. Let's get that same weight back in through here. Again, theme. Really important to get the theme down. Let's put a little bit of tone inside of that to kind of tone it back a little bit. Roll that back just a touch. Drive through it. Get that return down below. Interesting graphics here. Let's put a little more tone in this guy. Interesting. Let's bring that right off of that line into that. More thrust in the wheels themselves. There you go, guys. That's a pretty gutty looking setup there, I think. Pretty mean. What do you think, guys? Come together nicely? Hey, how are we doing there? We got another question. Busy, but man, great to see you. Hey, good to see you as well, Shadow. And as far as, let's see who we got in here. Justin and Northern, how's it going, guys? Is this making sense for you? Again, really to spend some time today really working on getting used to the fact that sometimes we go real lucid with this stuff and you begin to explore some different geometries and some different looks of this actual vehicles we're dealing with and working with. So I think that's the main point of the stream today, is to never lose sight of the fact that, to me, as far as the ideation cycle is concerned, is the less predictable you are, the more powerful it's going to become. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. Don't be predictable. Wheels down, same line, same form. We're looking at a basic theme to work with here, obviously, but nonetheless, just taking variation on a theme for what it's worth. I like that. Keep yourself off guard. Yeah, that's a good point, Shadow. That's exactly what we're saying here. So far, so good. And Justin, you still there? And Ben, I think Ben, you're out of state. You're out of the country, are you not? I hope that's the case. I'm pretty sure that's was it Sweden, I believe. I'm not sure. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Hey, I'm here, boss man. Very good. Is this making sense for you, Justin? Helping at all? Again, looking at ways to get much more expressive. I think I'm just at the point now where I'm not trying to, this is not something that I'm really formatted to or really become predictable by, but I love to change pace. Sometimes it's very formal looking, sometimes it can be extremely formal, sometimes it can be very lucid. And I'm in a real camp of being much more lucid. I just think it's really interesting that the more you let go of certain mores and norms that you're dealing with, or certain familiar shapes, the stronger it's going to become. So let me sharpen these guys up a bit here. And let's go keep out a couple more elevations here, and we'll kind of switch gears and go into some other things here. What if we did the same thing here? Let's go back to the ballpoint pen. Let's go back to that. Let's get that ground line down here for a bit. Let's lay that in. What if we really got bold and said, you know what? Maybe it's more of this. Let's get that wheel count in. A little bit bolder in the rear section there. Let's kind of get that ground line and reinforce itself. Now, what if we did this? And did a real interesting sharp coming off that bone line off the wheel center here. Let's just do that. Let's get that into place. Maybe it's just this. But then we get really aggressive with it and come right full forward with this guy. Change the whole gesture of this thing. Maybe it's that to that to that. Then we compound it by coming in here. Let's get a little bit of that shoulder to work in here. Let's get that to work. Let's get that to break just a touch. Let's bring this in off that. Now let's get that thing to come right back in off that wheel and do this. And let's put another canard down in here. And get another one up front. All right, look at the aggressive stance this thing has. Really pull forward. Back in again. Now make it even more acceptable. Let's kind of put a little bit of banding in this thing coming off the actual cowl itself. Let's break that line right out of there. And take that right through. Maybe that's the case where we put a little bit of graphics in this thing. So this is maybe a color band of some sort. That breaks that up just a touch. Let's kind of lightly pay that in. Let's kind of put that in place. Let's put a little bit of this in place and really kind of really quick and sketchy here. Let's come back and reinforce the stuff we've got here. There's that canopy. This is a true spider now, no upper. Just a nice full forward spider. A little bit of rearview mirror coming up on top here to kind of poke it up. There it is, there. A little bit of trim piece. This breaks back. This comes over. that goes on through and creates that similar light system here, that little floating backlight area, little tail section there. There we are. I've been so busy lately, I've been missing the streams. No problem, I know you're very busy, but welcome all. Again, it's good to have you all on board here, gang. Let's go back and look at this here. Let's tune in this thing in. Go back in and just add a little more tone in this thing. Notice really quick, just trying to get some basic gesture down. Right behind, and behind, back in the wheel system again, back in the wheel system again. The boulder graphics in through here, down the ground. Let's get a bit of boulder up on top here so we see where that actual brake is. So it's going to be an actual paint band or a graphic ribbon up on top here. And that comes in and just leads us into this form. Takes it through. And again, we're just kind of stream this in here. A little darker banding in through here. Get that actual paint graphic to read. That breakup rather. I'm going to accentuate it. A bit of a highlight line up on top of that surface. Take that on through. Really messy kind of sketches, but again, looking for just themes and lucidity. I mean, that's the whole idea of it, is to get some of these shapes that really kind of pull a little bit, and it causes you to think about, is this an interesting process or not? I'm really, again, it's exploratory day, guys. Let's go back in again. Pushing a lot of wax in here because I just want to keep it really nice, and let's get that secondary line in place here so we can see that. Notice I'm not wasting a lot of time. I'm moving all over the place just to kind of keep the gesture straightforward. Why do you do the wheel count for sure? Yeah, the wheel count is interesting, Justin, because it helps me determine how to set the wheelbase up. For example, typically speaking, it's one wheel down and then maybe 4.5 back. That gives you a pretty good proportion on wheelbase and scale. So the different packages will do certain things, but the normal format is when you lay down a wheel, for example, and get a spoke started or a system started, take that first wheel and come back and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5 maximum. That gives you a pretty good indication of how to really kind of keep the proportions proper. And I think that's another study we're going to have here very shortly next week about getting into proportion studies as well. So we'll see how that all operates here. Let's kind of go back and put a little more tone in this thing. I hope that answered your question, Justin. Let me know if did that make sense for you? Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's 4 back. It really is interesting. We'll show you in a moment how that begins to really play into a lot of proportion changes you deal with as well when you go through a series of sketches. So let's kind of get this little sketches in here. Let's go back through and get that down. A little bit of tone. I'm going to find out where my center on is. And the reason I'm doing that too, Justin, I get that theoretical center in place because that tells me how to begin to put scope in. For example, if I know where my center lines are here, I can take that second wheel or in perspective and just pull it back in and give it a little more depth in the sketch. That's another little trick. If you look at any given elevation like this, you'll never just see wheel to wheel. You'll always have that depth of that second wheel or the far side wheel is showing in. Why? Because those vanishing points are going behind you into a certain into a horizon line to make that function. So that's a really helpful piece, I think. So let's do this. Let's get this guy rolling here. Just take him off that little lucid sketch. Nothing really fancy, just flying right into it here, man. Having fun. That's the whole idea today. get out of the cosmetics of just being so pure, so simplified, and so dignified. Man, there's nothing worse than being falsely dignified. I mean, I can't stomach that at all. Crank on it, man. Look at function. Really let it go. So there's a first pass at looking at some very quick, maybe just some theme studies here about how to deal with an elevation, looking at a new proportion. Notice the gesture here is interesting. Notice we're coming off the wheel front envelope, uphill, and at the right point, maybe 2/3 back, braking it. Get a little more gesture as opposed to the same old slump line, for example. This whole uphill, then brake, uphill, brake. Uphill, brake. Different variations on the theme here about how to get that newness to work for us here. So that's the first pass at it here. Let me just do this and make myself guilty. So there's sketch one. I mean, there's the first phase that we're looking at. Now that's establishing maybe a certain format in terms of getting proportion down, a new look, maybe a new gesture, a new drive line, a new stance, etc. That's got a question here. So when you draw a car from that perspective, you should always have the other wheels. Yeah, no question, Justin. I'll go back to that in a moment here so you get a good review on that. That's exactly extremely paramount. If you don't do that, what happens if you don't show that second, let's do this. If I put that wheel in place, and I show that far side tire on the front and that far side tire in the rear, that tells me where the viewer, I'm standing about right here. That helps me to set up where the perspective is. What it also does, it really kind of gives more depth to the sketch, so it makes it much more believable. And really go out there, stand about maybe 30 feet from your automobile and look at it right from a dead elevation, maybe stand right in the middle, and you'll see that if you get down at eye level like we're showing you here, you'll see that phenomenon exists in perspective. So we're not cheating things here. We're not making a lie out of the circumstance. We're flattering the reality of making things more believable. Let me do one more thing here before we leave this sketch. Just kind of beef this up some more, get a little more guts to it. There we are. That's better. That's where that brake line comes through. Notice I follow that highlight right through. Being consistent, even though I'm being lucid, and get a little more tone in this color. Just slide it right through. Just some fun stuff. I mean, that just kind of gives you a little bit more impact in terms of, wow. Just that this thing's mean, or else it has a stance about it. It's a little bit more of a departure. So let me just kind of sharpen these sticks a little bit, and I'll fill any questions you might have there. And I'm just wondering if, let's see, Ben Northern, are you still there? Hey, you're in Denver. Hey, very cool. So I thought it was maybe out of state. So thanks so much for joining me, Ben. It's just making sense for you too. And I really appreciate the questions here, Justin. Good stuff. And I hope my answers are helping you. So let's call that a day that's the first page. And we'll come back and review that in a little bit. So now that you've got a theme established, now the trick is to move around a little bit more lucidity and have some fun with this thing. And I think that's the next step where you go back in and say, all right, what if we did this? What if we use a little bit of geometry here to set things up? Let's say we do it like this. Let's say we do this. Let's come back in and say, I'm going to do this first. I'm going to do this, find a spot. I'm going to come back in and say, I want a pot here. I want to put a spot right there. That whole circle right there is going to help me line up the entire sketch by doing the following. I'm going to drive this off, drive this up, get that same break we're talking about beforehand, lose it right there. Come back in and step that big form out of there. Go vertical first, and then break it right back in. Down the ground. There I am. Now watch what happens here. I'm going to draw through this. I'm going to pull through this. Take this line into play. Take that line into play. And then come right back in and pick up where that upper is going to be. Break it. Come across. Break it. And there's my upper. Look how that form's coming together. Is that fun? Cool. Really fun stuff. Look, notice that circle has set up the entire perspective. So now if I come back in through here, if I shingle this and break it just a bit, and I come back down again, and I take that right around the bend, and I take that right on through, and I take that right on through. Look at that. There it is. Coming together, gang? Very much so. I think I'm very much too rigid overall, and this is great fun. Yeah, it's just fun to watch. So here we go. Let's go back in through here. Let's break that off. Let's kind of tighten this down. Let me go a little more. I want to make sure that those of you who are watching that you got a good gist. Again, real lucid. Is that coming together, guys? Look at that. Oh, that's a cool, yeah, it's a neat perspective. It's just kind of tight. What we're trying to do now, Justin, is this. Take these family of shapes and we're going to convert them into some sort of perspective where we see what the front end graphic looks like. And while we're on that subject matter, notice again that first circle here, pardon my hands here, guys, that first circle set of the perspective. I take that right back to center line, through the glass, into upper, draw that through, into upper, and get that far side canopy in place. Into this. There's that real strong, bold line coming off of that quarter hip off the wheel. Now break that into place. Let's take this down. Let's just take this thing and have a little bit of fun with this thing now. Notice I'm still being real wiry with it. I'm not going to really tighten it down. I'm going to really come back and just explore. Let's take the hip and let's move that in just a little bit more of a shoulder in through here. Let's get that coming off of that piece. Let's come back off of this. Let's just do some really neat looking blade graphics. Oh yeah, really nasty looking stuff right there. There you go. Is that coming together, guys? Look at that. That's fun. Here we are. Let's see, Streamlabs. So that's for me. That's, yeah, neat perspective. All right, let me stop there for a second. Let's kind of draw this through. Let's drop this down. Now let's get this to work. I mean, look how wiry and how quick this sketch is. But now notice, does it make sense? Help me out here, guys. Hey, how we got there? J. Suzuki, 36, one of famous by, oh yeah, there's a bot. Okay, very cool. All right, question out there again, guys. What do you think there, Justin, if you're still with me? And Ben, so far so good? Look at the difference in the character there. Is that helping? Let's go back in and just tighten down just a bit more. Again, not tighten down in that sense, but just a little more lucidity here before we start putting some. There's a really good gesture beginning to happen here. Again, we're just starting to pick up some of that same character. And oftentimes, that's all it takes. Just a sketch like this. Get the theme down and explore the differences. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, very cool. Thank you very much, guys. It's the process that matters more than anything else. Let's switch gears just for a minute here. A little bit of pencil detail to this thing. Reflected glass. Rearview mirror. Rearview mirror. A little bit of that texture change we talked about earlier. That's where that graphic is going to go. We're going to put it right there. Bring it through the hip. Bring it right through the machine. Nice and easy. Now let's get back. Let's get the other one in place here. So where the offset is. You're quiet out there, guys. This is making sense? Coming along all right? Oh, now this is like, just, this I like. Yeah, it's kind of a fun stuff here, guys. Let's put a little bit of tone in this. Let's do a little bit of GT stuff. Let's give it a little bit of a Porsche character. A little bit of red insert piece on the hood line. That's let's reflected glass into it, just a bit. Fun. If it ain't fun, don't do it. Make that right shadow. Tone. And the tone, let's get a bit more of this intake to read a little bit better. Just enough information to get the theme down. Notice how we're playing that whole situation up. We're actually just pushing this thing out of. Hey, how you doing, Ben? Northern Lights. Any general tips on dexterity exercises? I do a lot of overhand drawing with a shaved graphite pencil. Try to get more. Yeah, let me stop and address that question for you, Ben. There's some really good dexterity exercises. In fact, let me do this. Let me finish this stream up, and I'll address your question about how to maybe go through some dexterity exercises with pencil work and the like. Maybe that'll be of some help to you. So as we go through this evening, or this setup here, stop me every now and then. We'll just kind of go back in, and and at the end of the stream, let's pick it up, make sure that I address that question for you, Ben. So I won't forget that. Super. All right, let's go back in again. A little bit of line weight, and then notice I'm really kind of focusing in on certain areas. Not going to finish the whole thing out. Line weight. Keeping it nice and lucid, real scratchy. A bit of ground shadow here. And we're almost there, guys. What do you think? Coming together all right? Let's see. Northern Lights. Yeah, cool. Very good. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you hanging on here. It's a little bit of a stretch as far as timing goes, but let's put a little bit of tone in this thing now. And there it is. Real quick gesture sketch here on how to put together what happens when you have this kind of an approach coming into play with that format. I mean, look at the family of shapes we're developing here as a result of really getting that hip to kind of come up and stop and drop back on itself and becoming a lot more lucid in terms of really cool shapes here. Let's go do this. Let me get a ballpoint pen back at her again. Let's go the other way. Let's get the wheels planted first. Let's go the other way. Let's drop it in here. That circle. It's going to be everything for me. It's going to come off of this. It's going to come off of that. There it is. Really quick little gesture there, guys. What do you think? Notice how I use those wheels again to set things up? And this time, we're going to keep it nice and free in terms of maybe just enough of this. Right down that center line again. Notice a lot of suggested forms here, not really filling it all in, just being really gestured in terms of putting together form. Look, I'm just scraping right through this guy, sending out a real signal. There we are, just a couple of old thin sketches here. Hey, Silvertail, how you doing? And just got this black and red shadow. Hey, how you doing, guys? Yeah, good to join. Thanks very much, Silvertail, for joining and force us here today. Just looking at some very quick and simple little dirty sketches here. Let's go back and find a little gesture of these guys, what it's worth. Oh, pardon me, I'm losing my pad stuff here, guys. Sorry, let's move this up just a bit. Go back in here for a momento. There it is. There we are. So there we are. Just a couple little themes got you here. Let's kind of get these guys in place, and we'll fill a little bit in here. Let's get this really gutty looking. Yeah, I forgot to add these guys. All right, let's put just a little bit of theme in here. I'm just going to back off. I just want to really stress. Oops, let me move this over just a bit here. How's it coming, Silvertail? It's good to have you on board here, guys. Really fun to have you. Let's put a bit of drop shadow on this thing. A little drop on that, a little bit of drop on that. A bit of tone in through here. And then notice I'm really working extremely quick. Again, the whole purpose of today's stream is to get into the habit of changing the venue a little bit and getting a lot more impact in terms of, man, I love that bottom shape. Yeah, that's just a really fluid looking form. Very simple. So here we are, guys. Just kind of put a little bit of tone into this. A little sneak and dirty little line weight change of pace again. Notice we spent some time before I started the sketches and the stream itself, really focusing in on focusing in on getting real simple with some of the stuff we're dealing with. There's that nice high-end car. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it is high-end. What we're looking for here, in the beginning of the stream, I mentioned the fact that sometimes we get so cosmetic with our sketches, being very careful, very linear, and we lose sight of some of the exploratory stuff and working with some really neat shapes and working with developing a form, looking for a new stance, a new aggressive format of some sort. But really, I think this changes the whole paradigm. When you move into an area of, let's put it this way, if you step off the cliff, man, there's nothing to hang on to. Just go. That's the fun part about going into some of the design creatives. I go work with clients. I'll do that often with clients. They'll give me certain parameters and certain ground rules to deal with, but I'll come right back in and say, you know, what if we did this and this and this? I'll address what they need, but at the same time, I come back in with what if, and what if. It makes a huge difference. And the reason I bring that up about the what if phenomenon, that gets into the lucidity side of not being predictable. One of the most dangerous things you can do in this business is to become predictable. I mean, I know I do some things that are habit forming, and they are habit forming, but I do the best to recognize them and then begin to break out of it and change tone instantly as soon as I begin to recognize it. So we go back in here and just do a little more of this. Let's put a real simple little tone into this. Nice and easy. There it is there. And then there, just nice and gesturally. Those of you who are still with me, hope you still are. Hope this is really making some sense for you here, guys. 1, 2, into 3, and then again to 4. I mean, look at that. There's nothing there. Honestly, when I had my, I've already had mine, and I still can't drive it, Foxdale. It's good. But look, the point I'm trying to get at is there's nothing here at all, guys. But look at the gesture you're creating. I mean, you're letting the symphony of all these things come together and allowing the eye to foreclose. The only thing I'm going to add is this. Look at that simple addition to the typical. It's changed the graphic format. Let's kind of just tighten this down just a bit. Look how that format right there, that simple little change of graphic patterning in the rear quarter, hopefully, let's get this into place, how that has changed the entire character of that machine. It's all rear bound. It's really kind of a neat little approach. The sketch isn't great, but I mean the concept hopefully gets behind. And you just ground it by doing the following. Come back in there and just maybe add a little touch of this. And letting it go. I mean, notice, there's nothing magical here at all. It's just getting the shape down. And then coming back in and making sure that you've got the right proportion. Going back to what Justin was saying earlier about the proportion side. Why do we go ahead and put that far side wheel in place? Notice this one, I'm not even going to show it. But in the other views, you had a question about why that's critical to put that together, because it tells you where to place the perspective and how it all comes into play, for example. So there's another good example for what. Let's do this, just to maybe touch a little bit of the concept here. Let's kind of bring this back, put a couple of those little guys in there, just let that kind of scream through there. How's that? That's cool. Now let's get that, and just kind of roll that off of there. There you are. Simple. It's real simple, guys. Now, let me stop there. Anybody, any comments or questions at all about what the nature of these sketches are? And again, the nature of these drawings is to get into the habit of being extremely lucid and being very generative in terms of generating shape. Generate shape, generate shape. Don't be predictable. Just let the hand gesture kind of scribble through some things. I call that just divine scribbling, really. Go back and scribble through some things, see what you're after, and then begin to define it a little bit here. So let's do this. Let me sharpen these sticks a bit here. Come back in again. And you'll find, too, that once you start, let's just going to get this all set up here. There's phase 2. Let's go back in here just for a second. That sets a precedent right there. Maybe 1 and 2. And let's go back in here just with this ballpoint pen. I'm just going to explore some things here. Now, let's go the other direction. Let's say, okay, let's do this. Let's come back in and say, all right. Look how lucid I am going through this whole sketch. I'm just really exploring. There it is. First recorder. What do you think, guys? Let me stop there for just a moment, catch my breath, and see if we can kind of address some things here for you. What do you think? So far, so good. I hope this stream has been helpful to you. It's been really extremely helpful for me to just get out of the habit sometimes of just being so predictable with this stuff. So let's kind of carry on here, and I'll address, if any questions come up, I'll be sure to address them as we go here. So here we are. Let's go back in through here. Anybody out there? What do you think, guys, of this perspective? See how quickly it all came together? Notice what we use again to kind of set it up. That big circle, that told me where that whole hip line is going to become and where my drive lines are going to be generating off of that shape. There it is there. There's my center line coming down onto the deck and right back into that little pitchfork down below. There I am. There it is. Got a nice backside. There it is. Just nice and simple. Just nice and easy. Let's come back and put a little bit of tone to it. I can just bring up the same basic theme. Take that through. Hope you're still with me there, guys. I'm just kind of trying to finish up the sketch. There it is, a little 3/4 study. How cool is that? Fun? Hanging on here. Let me see. I think if my brother isn't being himself, I might stream tonight. It's good. All right. There it is. A little bit more guts in this thing. keeping it real lucid. And hopefully, let's put a little bit of contour in here so we know where we are. Over the top of that shoulder. And there I am, guys. That simple. And there it is, another 3/4 study. What do you think, guys? Coming along all right? For more information, no, yeah, let's see, yeah, that's information on my website and so forth. That's no problem. Let me stop there for a second and get your input on this thing. What do you think, guys? Coming together right? Notice how we're really trying to stress. There's a lot of things going on here. I just want to slow it down for a moment here. This whole idea of just the idea of perspective, lucidity, being gesturally, not being predictable. But I think what makes it work is working with some just very basic geometric shapes and how things begin to develop. Notice we started this whole sketch with one big huge circle, and that just dictated the entire process for us here. So Justin, if you're still there, and if the other gentleman from Denver, pardon me, Ben, are you still with us? Let me know what you think here, and please, any input you might have, any questions or comments you might have take place, please feel free to do so here. I'm looking forward to kind of addressing some things as we go through the process here. Let's go back in through here. Get back and sharpen these sticks a little bit. Let's do one last thing here. Let's just go back in through and just look at this maybe from the other perspective. Let's kind of bring it down to ground line here for just a bit. One, let's take this back and do a count here. And there it is there. Let's get this guy over the top. Let's kind of run that through just a bit. Get that same circle in place. And there it is. Again, same process, just being real gesturally and loose. 3/4 rear, there it is, insightful. There it is. Glad you are enjoying it. Hey, very cool. Bend Northern Lights, no question. This is very insightful. That's really cool. It's a lot of fun to put this thing together. Now notice, look at how, again, you gesture these sketches together. Again, we started the same process. Got the wheel plant down, and Justin is still there. That count's still available. There I am. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, 4.5 rather, pardon me, back and across the set. And again, take that far side shape if I down. Let's get this into place. There's that kick. There's that kick. There's my rear window. There's my center line. Bring it right through. Then add that little spear this time, but I don't need to. I'm not going to worry about that far side. I'm just going to put a little bit of indication that's right there. That's all I need. I'm going to bring this forward. I'm going to bring that forward. And just develop this shape. There's that little offset piece here. The most important part of this whole design or concept is this. This portion right here is all one body color. This could be all carbon fiber. There it is, right there. That's just all the same shape. I went through the wheels because we're going to kind of blend that in. And there it is, and there it is. There's a graphic formula right there. That's it. That's the basic theme shape right there. Now we come back in. A little bit of maybe a little mid-engine intake piece here, possibly. Put that into place. Minimal stuff. Backside glass. Daylight opening. Line thrust. Ground shadow. Ground shadow. Look how little is there, but hopefully it's all there. Bam, there you are. Just how really dynamic or gestural that thing is. Hey, very cool. Looking good, guys. Let's come back in again. Let's get a little bit more daylight. Let's pull that upper back just a bit more. We've got a more reflective glass. And let's take that right through into this shape here. A little more contour. Let's get the rearview mirror planted. A bit of an indication of a backlight. A little bit of tone through that cylinder, into that hot spot right through here. Just bring that right on through. Let's get this into place. And we'll highlight it just a bit. Detail it. Bit of nomenclature. Let's hide that rear wheel. Let's try that little graphic form in the rear quarter section here. And there it is, guys, from the other view, from the rear three-quarter. So just a whole bunch of stuff here, guys. I just went through a whole melodic series of sketches based on the whole premise for today's program is simply this. Again, as I started with, I think, and I'll get to that question in a moment here, Ben, about this lucidity or drilling practice time stuff. It's really important, for example, to sign your work. So let me just sorry here for a second. So it's really important to remember that the whole purpose of today's, let me move that over just a bit, today's stream was to really take advantage of being lucid, non-predictable, taking chances. And by the way, if you make a mistake, that doesn't matter. The idea is where the whole idea comes out and looks at, for example, the outcome should be, oh, I didn't expect that. That's the great thing about being lucid and taking chances, the unexpected. So very interesting things. That was the purpose today. Not being so critical, not being so slowed down, not being so finite, but being very infinite in terms of moving in and out of the picture plane and developing shapes and surfaces to kind of deal with it. I got a question back here. Real shadow count. Love the wingless design too, like the new Peugeot Hyper. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that whole process kind of wings together here. Dare to be great, right? Yeah, that's right. That's exactly correct. Dare to be great. And that daring takes a lot of risk. And I think that's what I'm trying to get across as well. This whole idea of changing the paradigm or maybe moving out of the envelope a little bit and taking some great chances. That's where it all begins to come together. So let's go back and review where we are here. This is where we started. Excuse me. Came back in and started the whole process by saying, you know, we're going to do a little two-place coupe. Maybe it's a spider variation. Maybe it's a two-place. Maybe it's convertible. But the whole idea is to get a gesture change here and started very loosely with a ballpoint pen, just working through some things here and to put that together. And then we went from these elevation studies, just taking the same basic theme. Notice we didn't shift too much from this. We came off that front wheel uphill and at the right point, excuse me, broke it rearward to kind of change the old idea of going through the contour down and back up again, just uphill then brake, uphill then brake, uphill then brake. 3 variations on that very simple theme to get this thing started. And again, looking for some interesting graphic changes as well. Maybe it's not all the same body color. Maybe there's accent changes that we can move into this thing with and change again the paradigm or the appearance, and above all else, the lucidity factor, you know, the gesturally factor. And to me, the gesture, it has to have a stance. A certain proportional stance, and go back to what getting back to what Justin was talking about earlier. That whole stance of getting 1, 2, 3, 4 wheels back and putting that far side tire in place, that's a part of the stance, as much as this is. When we move from that phase into this, that same tire count is in a count here. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back, 4.5 back. the stance really changed, and I think that's again playing that whole idea of that uphill run and drop, uphill run then drop. That's a little more of a wing system here, but again, interesting. I need to do this just to clarify the mission here. Pardon me, didn't put enough inset in here. This is actually a intake, so that's going to do that. That's going to do that. And that is going to do that. Just going to bring you inside that intake just a little bit better. So there we are. That's another variation on theme. So again, coming into lucidity. The key word for today's stream, if I were to pick one, would be very simple: explore. Explore, explore, explore. Take chances, make mistakes, go back and refine them, find out how to massage certain lines or certain shapes and forms. Front three-quarter studies on the same theme. And last but not least, a couple little studies here on rear three-quarters, what they might look like if you kind of turn it around a little bit. Notice the whole thing kind of uphill then breaks a little bit. That might kind of stretch the wheelbase on this a little bit. Looks a little bit forced from this view, but it has a little bit more romance here where it actually kind of changes pace. I think in both cases, if I were to do this again, making the mistake, which I think is great because I get a chance to do this again, is come back uphill a little further, then break it, uphill a little bit further, then break it, and just change the view a little bit. So all these elements are available to us. I think that's what's part of the fun part here, and so cool to go back in and look at what lucidity can do for us. And again, I'll stop here for a moment, and Ben and Justin and Shadow, Silver, anybody, any comments at all here as we close this thing up a little bit? Please feel free. I'll just hold on a moment here while I get this thing out of the way. Just going to put these sketches back in order. Anybody, please feel free. Any sketches, any commentary about what we're after here? That's it. Those are the three we just dealt with throughout the entire day. Let's see. Any idea for the wheelbase? Let's see. Where did the 5 circle come from? Well, the 5 circle came from just basic platform at design staff. It was at GM, Shadow. The platform were set up. For example, there was a 5-wheel count for a large coupe or a sedan. There's a 4.5 count for an intermediate and so forth down the line. Small cars, for example. It comes down to a basic science of setting up what was known as a 1-box, 2-box, and 3-box setup. Each one shared the same wheel plant, for example, maybe 4 to 4.5 wheels. But that's a pretty good tried and true piece of information graphically to get proportions started properly. Any longer than that it becomes a stretch limousine. Any shorter than that becomes a little puddle jumper. So the 4 really kind of jumps together and does an idea. What about wheelbase width? Any standards? Yeah, there are. Not to exceed 60 inches from tread line to tread line, which is about 5 feet overall width. And now you get into some of the exotics, they go up a little bit. They'll stretch a little bit more, maybe 6.5 to get that lower, wider stance. But yeah, there's a standard there for that as well. So maybe one of these days in the stream, I'll go ahead and put together a series of sketches based on something. In fact, I would like to do a teaching setup where you begin to go through those processes and transportation design. So I'm trying to put together a script now for an intermediate series of standards. A little bit, say a little bit slimmer, but in most cases for some of the exotics, there's a lot more latitude there, Shadow. So it changes quite a bit. And again, back to what I'm trying to get across and do some research on and putting together some scripts for a second level of video pieces in my website. Why is it good for a faster car? Yeah, it is. There's a little more downforce on it, so that'd be very helpful. So all that to say that this is really interesting how it all comes together here, guys. And Ben, if you're still there, question again was, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm trying to test my memory. Your comment earlier on was about any exercises that improve your lucidity in terms of putting together line forms or sketches or whatever. Is that correct? Ben, if you're still there, let me know. And I'll proceed here with just a couple of little thumbnails to maybe help you go through the process here. While I'm waiting for you to respond, I'll just kind of sharpen some sticks here. All right, Ben, anybody, and Justin, if you have any questions as well, if you're still with me, feel free to ask any questions as well, Justin. I'll be happy to address them that you might have as well. So Ben, if you're there, give me a heads up on what you'd like to see, or maybe some suggestive things you'd like to look at here. Yeah, so again, are you more concerned, Ben, at this time about just about generating shape or hand gesture, or what, dexterity exercises? To me, there's some of the greatest dexterity exercises involve doing things like this. Get a sheet of paper up, for example, bend and begin to look at things like this. Take that thing and just start to take your hands. Notice where my fingers are on the pencil here. Come back up and say, all right, now this is what's really neat. Go back and let that pencil do the work for it. Come back and doing a series of circles and just generating shape, and then change the attitude or the latitude where it comes down to almost a flat line, then back into fullness again. So you notice my hands never changed. They really helped in terms of keeping that. And let's go back through that again. Hands upside down in more of a search mode. Start the circle, break out of it, begin to go downhill. As you come downhill, change the format, go a little bit thinner with it. Now that's one thing for just getting round forms down. Another good exercise is this. Take a series of lines and just open them up, go thick to thin. Change the value. Change the concept. Thick to thick to thick, back to thin. Accenting. Getting into vertical lines, keeping the vertical. Going back in perspective, changing the weight of the lines, for example. Notice again, at me, thick. As I go back in space, notice, thick, thin. Again, all these elements begin to really help in terms of putting together dexterity systems and learning how to put together processes. And also, another little exercise too is this on the same page. You can get back in with a certain round like this, come back to a circle. And again, away from the light source, into the light source. Thicker, thinner, thicker, reflected light. That's what I'm helping myself do. Come back in again, even on some of the rounder surfaces here, into a full circle. Come back in again, add it. Come back in and show me where the light source is coming from. There, across, and into there. Up on top of doing cylinders, for example. Come back up on top, create the shape. Drop in the verticals. Show me where the light source is coming from. Thick, let it disappear. Draw it through. Line weight changes. Come back in there again. Thick, inboard, and then done. You're there. Let me stop there for a moment. Does that help at all, Ben? Shape, as you can see, you're extremely precise. All of these sketches, I often wonder what improves that reading dexterity. This is great. So perhaps just mileage is some. Yeah, I think it's mileage in terms of practice time. There's no question about that, Ben. No questions. It's all this is. This is great. So perhaps just mileage is some. All of it? Yeah, a lot of that is practice time. And I think, I don't want to be self-serving here, but this might be helpful for you as well, man. If you go to my website at drcontrast.com, you'll see a whole series of exercises. Pardon me for a moment here. If you go to my website, drcontrast.com, you'll see a series of lessons that deal with the very thing you're walking about here. Gets into perspective, line weight, line thrust, etc. Dexterity exercises, light source, contour, a lot of neat stuff. Just simple shapes over and over. Line weight, no question. Simple shapes. Let me start another sheet here for you, there, Justin, for a moment. Pardon me as I move along here. Another thing that really helps is this. Go through some simple shapes. Let me just kind of give you some very simple exercises here. You come back in and for example, a spherical shape, dexterity, round it out. Come back in, pick a light source, side of pencil. Come back in and tone again. To prove that it's round, change the circle, just change the arc. And a little bit of hot spot up on top. A little bit darker. A little bit darker. Notice I'm really playing up that crescent that gives me the round surface I'm dealing with. Again, cylinders. You can tone it all in very lightly. Notice where my hands never lift off the page. I'm going to go back through it once, come back in again and change the value. I'm just lifting my hand just a little bit to give me a little bit of a pressure change. And then come back in again, a little bit darker, and again, highlight. Outboard line, highlight right there, outboard line. Notice I left that whole area. That's reflected light, that's core. And across the top, tell me where the light source is coming from. No sweat. Light, lighter. Again, now line weights. Darker, darker. That's where my light source is coming from. That makes sense? Closest to me, I'm thickening it up. I'm really picking up, just picking it all up and really doing a lot of neat stuff. And I get back into certain shapes, for example, like this. Just take a certain series of shapes and practice. Again, closest to me, real thick. As it goes back away, lose it. No need to go the backside line. Come back forward with it. Lighter, darker, fade. Look at the drama in that sketch. Let me stop there for a moment, Ben. Drama meaning it's not a great drawing, but you see the interest in line weight change and dexterity. Let me stop there. I'll let you answer that question. What do you think, Ben? Helpful? I hope this has been helpful. I go through exercises like this all the time, Ben, so I'm not a lone ranger like you think I am. I practice this continuously. It's a very difficult discipline to work with. So let me just stop there for a moment. And again, if you're there, let me know if this has been helpful to you. Does that make a difference in the sketch here? All the line weight and then just exploring certain shapes is extremely helpful and very, very tuned in to what you need to develop. And Justin, again, if you're still there, any questions you have, please feel free to answer. Far away, I'll try to do the best I can to answer them for you. And closer, heavier. Yep, you got it. Closest to me, heavy it up. As it moves away from me, lighten it up. No need to follow. No, which is stronger, man? Let's do this. Which is stronger, that or this? Look at the difference. Which has more sense of space, this or that? Fantastic. That's what it takes. And good deal. Justin, how about you? Any questions at all in closing it up here? And again, did I answer your questions okay, Ben? Happy with the results? If so, great. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time, Ben. This is incredible stuff. If you're into certain things like drawing and exposing and putting ideas down on paper, there's nothing more exciting than to be able to put together ideas lucidly, quickly, and with a lot of confidence. And by the way, in closing, that's what this whole process begins to produce. All the stuff we dealt with, for example, these guys right here, all we're talking about here, this is a product of confidence. You don't take any chances, you never win. Take chances and win some things. And you'll learn some things about, I'm not going to do that again, or else I'll improve on what I've just done. So, and the reason I bring that up in the closing here moments is because everything is geared to this material you want right here. And this stuff right here produces this stuff right here. In time, the more you work with it, the better it gets. So practice. And again, I don't mean self-serving, but take a look at my website, drcontrast.com. You might find some interesting things there, and please, if you take a look at it, let me know. Very, very simple. It's not expensive, but I think it'll help you dramatically to get things moving down the line here. And now in closing, Justin, you still there? Has this been helpful, everybody? Shadow, 9 yards, Foxtail, gang. Really appreciate you being on board here today with me, gang. Fantastic stuff. And again, I just thought today after a Tuesday stream, I did a little bit of landscape work, more of a project-based piece. And I thought, let's go back and do some really geared up, fun coupe stuff here, spiders and two-place coupes, and have some fun with some lucid ideation studies, and real loose gesturally sketches. So all that to say, gang, thanks so much for being a part of the process today. If you have any notes, for example, Ben, if you're still there, any questions in future reference, feel free to drop me a note at my website, or my email address, Jim@drcontrast.com. Be happy to receive those and maybe communicate back and forth with you on some things. And also, please visit my website at drcontrast.com. I think you'll find it very entertaining. No problem. Jad, I have a quick. Yeah, go ahead, Jad, fire away. By the way, it's good to have you on board too, Jad. Thank you so much for taking the time here. This is cool. Are you coming to the Ohio Bar Citizen event? I've got a conflict with my family situation, Jad. I'm going to try and get up there and maybe later on in the day, but my granddaughter is moving out of state and going into another part of her life, and I want to be a part of that process. So unfortunately, I won't be able to be directly. I'm going to do the best I can to try and make that appearance. I'd love to meet you and the gang up there. Shadow brought that up, but I'm trying to get that resolved here. So stay tuned. We'll try to get that all put together. We'll definitely check out your site. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Okay, no worries, family. Well, yeah, it's one of those situations where she's been around all these days. She's going off to college for her first pass at it, and we don't want to miss it. But unfortunately, it had to take place this coming Saturday when you guys are in town. But I will try to do the best I can to work something out, Jad. So thanks for your question. But last but not least, so good to have you on board, gang. Thanks for all the information and all the feedback from you. It's been a real joy to work with you. I wish you all the very best. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. And in my streaming site, I always start on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock. Maybe we'll pick the same subject matter up again. If I get any more input, we'll change gears and address some of the things you're working with. So once again, thanks so much, folks. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. And again, visit my website, drcontrast.com. And I always close with this because I think it's the most important part of the stream. Never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Really great. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun here today. And be lucid, be confident, and above all else, be fearless, and dare to be great. Thanks, gang. Take care. Bye-bye.